Critical Role Recap Season 2, Episode 68. Last week, the Mighty Nein continued their chase of Oban, the dark elf whom they had attempted to capture in Rosanna. They managed to find themselves in some sort of tunnel cave system underneath the city of Bozikson, where they came across some statues crying tears of blood. They went inside a narrow opening and found themselves inside of this deep dungeon-like area. They had some fights and then eventually ended up in a room which had a bridge stretched across it leading into the vast darkness and a huge chasm in front of them. They noticed that sound would stir some sort of magical effect or creature from below them, which would send up a cacophony of whispers and screams. Members of the 99 would be affected by this voice if they failed to pass the wisdom check. They decided to put up their hut from Caleb's, Leomund's tiny hut, and try to get a full night's rest because of how few spell slots they have remaining, and a lot of people took a lot of damage in the fights previously. That's where we pick up this week, with them sleeping uneventfully through the night. They do manage to get their spell slots back and get completely rested up here on the other side of this chasm. They wake up the next morning and decide to go ahead and tie everyone together with a rope in order to make their way across this very long bridge, which is made of chain link and metal slats. They decide to try and travel slowly and quietly so as not to disturb whatever this thing is below them. However, on their way, there are some times when they fail to be quiet and they make some noise and the monster does its screaming thing. Both Bo and Not forced by this sound to jump off the side of the bridge. Luckily, they are tied via the ropes. The other members of the Mighty Nein are able to catch them and prevent them from falling all the way down to the bottom. However, while they're hanging there, they manage to see the thing below them, which is this giant sea, a river of flesh, as Matt describes it, of this kind of mouths, of teeth and mouths and eyes and flesh just kind of coursing around beneath them. That appears to be the thing that is causing these screams and inviting them in. When they fail the wisdom check, they either do nothing for a full turn, 6 seconds, are forced to walk in a random direction, or the third option is that they attack one of their allies. So they continue to make their way over the bridge with the sound, with noises occasionally occurring, and they hit each other a few times, try to go over a few times, stand still quite a bit, and then by the time they get to about the center, a roper, one of the giant cone dudes that we had seen previously with the long tentacle arms, comes upon them and begins to attack them. So during this brief fight, they have the roper to deal with, who snatches them up and dangles them all up in the air, in addition to their noises causing the creature below them to make its cry that then forces people to lose turns or attack their buddies. While Laura is not present for tonight's episode physically because she's feeling under the weather, she does text in through Travis to play her own character. So Jester goes ahead and banishes the roper, which is successful. However, when the roper gets banished, everyone who's suspended in the air, which is most everyone, gets dropped down to the floor. After this happens, that causes another loud noise, which then gets some more people trapped in it. However, Not, who has been terrified this entire time and completely sober, cut the rope from herself and moved slightly farther away from the group. So when this sound occurs, Not is forced to walk off the edge and falls down to the mass of flesh below. Not takes some damage on landing and takes a bite attack and is grappled and stuck inside of this flesh and being swallowed whole by the mouth. So Jester decides to jump off right where Not fell down and go down with her, and then she dimension doors Not and herself out of this massive flesh. They then spend the next little bit getting across and making sure that everyone manages to safely get across, keeping an eye on everyone, and everyone gets to the other side. As they approach the next area, Caleb throws up some balls of light, and they realize that they are surrounded by reflective surfaces and some sort of hall of mirrors, basically. They decide to take this time to take the skull out, which they had picked up off of the ground earlier when they first entered, in order to speak with one of the creatures, with one of the beings who had previously been here that they believed was working to guard this place. So they asked the creature what happened, and she said she was slain by who she was trying to guard. They asked who they were attempting to keep down here. The response was the Laughing Hand, the timeless and seeking torment of all, the undying chosen. So apparently they have numerous names or titles or something. They also ask how they can defeat this darkness, and they're told that they can't. It can only be sealed away, and that's why this tomb was constructed. They also ask who the Angel of Irons is, and the creature that they're asking, the skull of the creature that they're asking, is not aware, doesn't know. And then they ask how they can protect themselves from this Hall of Mirrors, and the creature responds to not go into it, to don't continue, basically, just leave. So after they have this conversation with the skull, they of course decide to immediately step into this Hall of Mirrors area and begin investigating it and forge their way forward. As they're looking around, Ford notices something strange out of the corner of his eye when he touches the mirror, but they can't figure out what exactly it is. Yasha goes up to touch a different mirror and is immediately pulled in through the mirror to the other side. When the Mighty Nein go to back her up, the mirror is solid again. Yasha gets pulled through by a mirror image of herself, who then she immediately has combat with, where she takes out her sword to try and kill it, and it starts biting at her with massive, grotesque jaws while wearing the shape of her face and form. Ford manages to go through also and fights himself, and then they fight off a Caleb clone, while the people on the other side of the mirror attempt to figure out how to get to the people in combat. Caleb notices some sort of weird dagger sticking out, but he can only see it in reflection. He can't actually see it in the world that he's in. So then he goes to try and pull at it, and he gets pulled through as well. But then they manage to kill off these weird creature mimics of themselves. And then Caleb gets the dagger and realizes that the dagger is what can be used in order to help people move into this kind of weird mirror dimension that they're in, that is like an alternate version of the place that they were. So after the combat, they continue their investigation of the area, and they find these things that they can hit that cause a musical tone. So Jesser goes ahead and copies the music that she had heard humming through the statues when she investigated them way back when they first entered this entire dungeon area, and she replays that tone, which then causes a wall to open up and give way to another passage. They find a statue whose hands are clasped before it, decide to go ahead and try and place the dagger inside the hands. It doesn't fit hilt-wise, so instead they switch it around to the blade, and when they place it in using Nott's mage hand, it goes in and turns to the side and kind of clicks in place, and then another doorway begins to open. And that's where we ended this week's episode. So we'll pick up next week immediately with the Mighty Nein delving further in this dungeon and trying to chase down Oban and figure out what exactly is going on and possibly meet with this darkness that has been sealed away for a very long time. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.